And I want to thank Madelynn, the person who, Wuestenberg, who's going to be speaking to you. She comes from Iowa State University, Extension Agricultural Climatologist. So this is her first one, so be nice. And on that note, I guess we're done and we can take off. So Madelynn, it's all you.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, so we'll just jump right into it here and see if my slides advance. Okay, perfect. So thank you for having me, and I'm excited to get into the presentation. But first, I want to remind everyone that our recording for today's and past presentations can be found at these links. The next webinar will be on December 18th, 2025 at 1 p.m. Central, and that will be with Bridget Mason, who's the assistant state climatologist and based out of the University of Wisconsin. So please tune in next month for that. And really want to highlight that this is a multi-partner effort, and lots of different groups are pitching in and contributing to this presentation. So really grateful to all the different partners, NOAA partners, regional partners, state climate offices, extension, USDA, regional climate centers, especially, who are all helping support this program. And yeah, just reminder that those recordings can be found on the Regional Climate Center websites in the near future. Past presentations are available, and this one will be available in the next few days or so. We are going to talk about some recent conditions across the region, river and stream flow situation. What are some of the impacts that we have from these recent conditions? And then lastly, get into our outlooks for the next month out to the seasonal 3-month outlook. So here we are with some recent conditions. We have the October rankings. These are unofficial data at this point, but official data should be released here pretty soon. But we see that for much of the region, we have really in that top third to top 10th warmest Octobers on record. So very warm fall and warm October. And we'll talk a little bit when we talk drought and impacts, the compounding effects of these really warm temperatures plus low precipitation totals that we've been seeing. So average temperature rankings have been on the higher side for many states across the region. This is another map really showing the same thing, but down to the climate district level. So again, seeing that many of the states in our North Central region were very warm this October. For precipitation rankings, we see this kind of uneven distribution of much wetter than normal conditions in the high plains, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, but some other states on the drier side. And we'll really see some of these longer term precipitation impacts when we look at drought monitor reports. Again, same situation, just broken out by climate districts. You can see where some of those driest and wettest districts exist across the North Central region. What's really interesting to look at too is the August through October minimum temperature rankings. And we can see that a couple states had their warmest minimum temperature on record for rankings in this August through October time period. So this fall, really warm, and those minimum daily temperatures, especially on the warmer side for most of the region. And wanted to highlight that in Wisconsin, there were 65 new daily high temperature records set at the beginning of October. The month's hottest temperature was 90 degrees and occurred in La Crosse on October 3rd, and a few other locations on October 4th. So a couple of really warm days, especially for October, setting those records across the state of Wisconsin, but just really speaks to how warm our fall has been and started out as. For the last 30 days, it's been warmer than normal for most of the region. We get closer to normal and slightly below normal temperatures on average there in the eastern part of the region, which may help with some of the, or may have helped with some of the drought impacts, but really for the most part, we're seeing this dry and warm pattern. For the last 30 days of precipitation, we have the percent of normal precipitation. And again, this is really highlighting where it has been drier than normal. High Plains, Wisconsin, and these areas where we're seeing drought in the eastern part of the region. And I'll show next the 90-day percent normal precipitation. That will really highlight where we're lining up with the U.S. Drought Monitor. So here's that 90-day percent of normal precipitation. Again, we're seeing that eastern half of the region really below normal for the past 90 days, that longer term time period, and where we're seeing drought lining up in Illinois, Indiana, parts of eastern and northwestern Iowa as well. Now we're going to take a look at that first 32-degree fall frost. So most of the U.S. at this point has received their first 32-degree freeze. We can see, and I'll talk about in agricultural impacts, this area in South Dakota where there's some blue, so that early September frost, pretty unusual timing for an early frost, but it did have some yield impacts. So we'll highlight that later in the presentation. But for the most part, this kind of mid to late October time period for the northern part of the region, and that early November period for the southern part of the region. So that was when we had our first 32-degree frost, but we can also see the date of the most recent 32-degree freeze, and that was right around that November 11th and 12th time period where we had a big cold air system move through a lot of the U.S., cold temperatures down in the southern part of the U.S. So really seeing that highlighted here, that much of the U.S. had those most recent 32 freezes really around that November 11th time period. Same situation or similar situation for that 28-degree fall frost data. So this map on the left is showing that date of the first 28-degree freeze. This would be more significant for when we're thinking about vegetation that may still be on the ground, and maybe some cover crops, especially in the northern part of the region. So thinking about that killing frost. So that happened for a lot of the region in October, and then that southern part of the region really getting that by that early November timeframe. So again, cold air came through, hung around for a few days there in November for a lot of the North Central region. We'll also take a look here at soil moisture. So we've talked temperatures and precipitation, but what does that actually look like for our soil moisture and what moisture we're holding right now? Keep in mind that it is fall, and that is our climatologically driest time period. So while we're seeing these deficits compared to especially spring and summer, we do expect it to be drier. So that's definitely something to keep in mind about the seasonality of the timing of drier and warmer conditions. So for the month of October, this is the soil moisture ranking percentile, and we're seeing really where things are lining up in Illinois, Indiana for drought conditions, where their soil moisture percentile is quite low. For this was pulled a daily snapshot on November 18th. And again, really seeing where we've had those precipitation deficits and are seeing those low soil moisture rankings. This is the soil moisture anomaly for, again, basically a couple week time period where we are seeing drier than normal conditions for our soil moisture at this time. And again, similar situation, we're seeing these products line up with that topsoil moisture report from the USDA, and we're seeing, especially Illinois, I want to highlight, and Montana and Wyoming, where we have some of those higher percentages of short to very short topsoil moisture, and where those have increased, especially compared to this time last year. So this is the current U.S. Drought Monitor report that came out this morning, and we can, again, we're seeing those extreme drought conditions in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And we're starting again to see those drier conditions in the western part of the region as well. So compared to this same time last year, the plains are much wetter. So we're seeing a less severe, lower intensity of drought reported in the plains right now at this time of year compared to last year. Western Ohio is also wetter at this time compared to last year, but that eastern Ohio, excuse me, but that northwestern part of Ohio is definitely drier this time of year than it was last year, and drier in Illinois and Indiana as well. So depending on where you are, that conditions are looking more positive or more negative for mid-November 2025 compared to 2024. Here we have the 4-week class change of the U.S. Drought Monitor. So we can see where things have gotten drier in the past 4 weeks and where things have been getting wetter. So we see in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, Kentucky, they've been getting fairly decent precipitation amounts in the short term. So they're seeing those class improvements in drought, but drought creeping in other parts of the region with this kind of shorter term deficits. When we look at the 24-week class change of the U.S. Drought Monitor, that's where we really see these long-term precipitation deficits bringing in these more severe drought conditions, and where we're seeing the majority of those really strong drought impacts. We also see really good improvements in the plains with respect to drought. We'll talk a little bit here about stream flow. So we have low flows in Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. Again, this is really aligning with those long-term 90-day plus precipitation departures. So where we're seeing longer-term precipitation deficits is also where we're seeing some of these lowest flows and greatest impacts to or for drought. We take a look at the Ohio River. Things are below normal at this point. That's kind of the story for all of these different stream flows we'll take a look at is things are slightly below normal. We're keeping an eye on it at this point. I have an impact slide as well that will summarize. Mississippi River at St. Louis, similar situation, below normal stream flows heading into the winter season. For the Mississippi River, there's at this point no imminent threats to navigation, but we are keeping an eye on this for any prolonged cold snaps that might freeze the river and cause stages to drop quickly, especially as we think about ice bites and those smaller rivers and streams feeding into the Mississippi that have a higher potential of freezing earlier on, given their size. So those freezing would reduce flow into the Mississippi, hence reducing overall flow in the Mississippi. So just keeping an eye on that, especially as we look to our outlooks and chances for cold conditions here in the next few weeks. Missouri River is the same story at this point, that leaning below normal flows in the Missouri River. So a couple different graphics that show in that 10 to 24 percentile leaning below normal at this point for the Missouri River.
And Maddie, can I just say this is at Hermann, Missouri, which is pretty far down the river. So
yes,
it's not the mouth, but it's up from St. Louis, not too far.
Yes, thanks, Doug. And then we'll also highlight this, but keep in mind, so what we see here is for the 2025-26 winter season, our mountain snowpack is slightly below normal, what we would expect from the 1991 to 2020 average. It is still early in the season. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this, but not something that we're going to get too worked up about at this point. Even though we are slightly below normal, there's not a huge surprise in that because it has been on the warmer side, and not allowing some of that mountain snowpack to accumulate and not so much snowfall quite yet. So again, keeping an eye on this as we move through the winter. And of course, it's early. Meteorological winter will start in December. So yeah, just keeping an eye on these totals as we move into winter. And again, looking at snowpack, this map isn't scary because it is, again, early in the season. We're waiting on really the majority of our snow accumulation period to start. So the Missouri Basin is below normal going into winter with lower reservoirs, but again, highlighting that it's been dry and warm for the upper Missouri Basin. So we would expect below normal snowpack at this point. Those drought impacts include D3, drought in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. These are relying on some of those longer term indicators, so 90 plus days. But things are quite dry in Illinois, and our next slide will really highlight that as well. So In Decatur, they have initiated stage 1 water rationing for the first time since 2012 in response to the dropping lake levels and water supply concerns for next spring. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. There is low surface water in Missouri, especially in smaller ponds and creeks. So they're starting to get on the dry side. But good news for Kentucky is they are completely out of drought as of early November. And this is the first time 100% of Kentucky has had no D0 or greater since the end of July. So I think Kentucky is feeling good about where they're at with regards to drought. But maybe they need to send some love up to Illinois because we can see here the Sangamon River is low, in fact, dry. So this is near Monticello, Illinois, and this is really incredibly detrimental for the aquatic life. So only a few mollusks are left in the river. Great pictures. I needed to put credit. I'm so sorry, but these are from Jim Angel in Illinois. So very grateful for him for sending these pictures and showing just how low the river levels are here. This is the third time in history this river has been dry. The last was in 2012, and we could not find when the year before 2012 was when it had dried up. But an article in 2012 had said 2012 was the second. So very rare. Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit extraordinary, especially from November. You might think this
Yes.
is pretty common in August or something like that, but well, it just seems a little odd that it happens in November. That's all.
Yes, certainly. And this river does supply water for the city of Decatur, which is what has led to um, water rationing and restrictions in the city. So, yeah, just a rare event and has impacts both for the aquatic life in the river and also the folks relying on this water for drinking and recreation and all those sorts of things. All right, now we're going to move over to the Great Lakes. This shows their uh, lake surface temperatures at this point in November. This was taken on November 18th. And we see that the lakes are tracking slightly above normal. So those that are tracking slightly above would include Superior and Michigan, and the lakes tracking right near normal are Ontario, Erie, and Huron. Earlier in October, the lakes were tracking all above normal, but as they've had that cold snap that occurred a couple of weeks ago, that was able to cool off some of that lake surface water. So leading up to that cool down, that cool down brought lake effect snow as well. So we can see really incredible snowfall totals as that system moved through over those warm lakes, really able to drop a lot of snowfall over these uh, coastal areas. So totals of 18 inches up in the Upper Peninsula and 14, 15 in Indiana and Michigan off of Lake Michigan. So just really incredible snowfall totals for early November, especially. But those warm lake surface temperatures definitely allow for this type of situation to occur. So keeping an eye on lake temperatures and potential for more lake effect snow as we continue moving into the early winter season. There we go. Another event that caught a lot of attention was the very strong geomagnetic storm that occurred on November 11th and 12th. And we saw Aurora Borealis all across the North Central region. Reports even folks down in Florida could see the northern lights on this day. So a really fantastic opportunity for many Americans to see such a spectacular weather phenomenon. So a video, again, I need to include credits, but the picture on the left here is from Laura Edwards in South Dakota. Really grateful for her sending this picture. It looks phenomenal. And the video here was posted by Daryl Hersman and shows, I can't remember which camera over which city, but a city in Iowa, northwest Iowa, that captured the northern lights on top of one of their buildings. All right, now we'll talk here quick about harvest conditions. So winter wheat is actually doing fairly well. This shows conditions poor to very poor. And for the most part, things are looking okay. Illinois and Montana are really in the region having the highest ratings of poor to very poor winter wheat. We have corn mostly harvested across the region, and South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana are all expecting record corn yields. I do want to point out that we expect that these percent harvested in Nebraska is higher than what's reported here. We are expecting that Nebraska is looking a bit closer to its neighbors in terms of harvest progress for corn. Again, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and Wisconsin are all expecting record soybean yields. So almost completed or completed in several states for soybean harvest. Apples and pumpkins had a good production year. There was low disease pressure because of the warm and dry conditions. Also, the warm fall was great for agritourism. Warm and dry conditions allowed folks to get out many weekends during the week out to apple orchards and pumpkin patches and spend their money on agritourism, which is fantastic. The warm conditions were also good for getting that winter wheat started. There are some areas that could definitely use some moisture for helping that winter wheat, but otherwise looking good. And corn and soybean yields were only slightly lower than originally expected back in September. But keep in mind that individual yields are going to be highly variable. And when I was talking about those freeze dates early in September, especially in South Dakota, there was a report of significantly reduced corn yields because of that early frost event in South Dakota at the beginning of October. All right, now we're gonna get into our outlook here. For those who celebrate, we are currently in La Niña conditions. So the sea surface temperatures are slightly below normal. That's expected to persist here for the next couple of months, and then expecting a transition back to ENSO neutral conditions sometime early next year, whether that's mid to late winter or early springtime, expecting to go back into those ENSO neutral conditions. This graphic here shows kind of typical expectations for conditions during a La Niña winter. So we have that really highly variable Pacific jet stream, colder and wetter conditions in the North Central region. But keep in mind that depending on where that jet stream sets up will really determine the conditions experienced across the North Central region. So something to keep in mind, but this does give us a general idea of winter conditions. In the next 7 days, the southern U.S. is expected to get quite a bit of precipitation, looking drier, especially for the upper Midwest and northern high plains. But yeah, system coming through and giving some good precipitation amounts, especially in the southern part of the North Central region. Our 8 to 14 day outlook is showing pretty good chances that around 50 to 60% chance of below normal temperatures and leaning wetter conditions. So this was issued on November 19th. It's valid for November 27th through December 3rd, and really shows good confidence in below normal temperatures across the North Central region, and leaning wetter for the region as well. The December outlook, go ahead.
Maddie, go back one slide. I just want to, so if we don't address this on the questions. So those of you traveling to Montana should be ready for a lot of snow with below normal temperatures and probabilities and well above normal precipitation probabilities. If you're traveling that way, just be aware. Be aware. Yay, Dale says yay. He's hoping for snow in the mountains. So, yeah. On to go. Thank you.
And I'll show the hazards, the 8 to 14 day hazards as well here in a little bit. So thanks, Doug. For December, this was issued today. It's valid for the month of December. So thinking general conditions throughout the month of December. Again, leaning colder in the North Central region, and variable chances for precipitation across the region. Leaning above in Montana, especially the western Dakotas, with those colder temperatures and higher chance for precipitation, likely good snow accumulation chances with that. And the seasonal outlook is valid for December, January, and February. This was also issued today, and that kind of leaning colder and wetter pattern is just really the name of the game and looking to persist here. I think I talk about it in impacts, but if not, I'll circle back. I also wanted to show the seasonal drought outlook. This was also released today. It's valid from today through the end of February, and shows where drought is likely to improve or persist or worsen in the next couple of months. So this, keep in mind, does not show a dynamic picture of what drought might look like in this few month time period, but hopefully gives us an idea of how conditions may change and may start us out at the beginning of the spring season as we think out towards the end of February, beginning of March. But also keep in mind, this is the dry season. So we expect that fall and into early winter are drier than spring and summer for much of the North Central region. All right, here are those hazards. On November 27th through December 3rd, there is a slight risk, so that'd be 20 to 40% chance for below normal temperatures across the region. This really lines up well with the temperature outlook we were seeing on that 8 to 14 day. So be aware for those hazardous below normal temperatures here at the end of November, early December. This is the risk of heavy snow. So slight risk, again, is that 20 to 40%. And we have that slight risk for heavy snow on November 30th through December 3rd. Again, lining up well with that 8 to 14 day leaning colder and wetter, giving us greater chances for snow potential. And lastly, I want to highlight this slight risk on November 28th through December 3rd for high winds across the plains. So if we have cold and snow and wind, that sounds like ingredients for blizzard conditions. So something to keep an eye on in the plains, especially as we end November and start December. Some of the key messages for these outlooks are there's a chance for a sudden stratospheric warming event that could lead to polar vortex or a weakening of the polar vortex, leading to a cold air outbreak in the North Central region. And November sudden stratospheric warming events are really rare. There's only one other event in history. So opens the potential for a rather historic SSW event. In terms of snow, the exact timing and location and amount, of course, are still unknown, so keep an eye on shorter term and local forecasts, but the general timing is early December for this cold and wet period. And these outlooks are certainly La Niña influenced at this point. So those La Niña conditions are really coming through in these CPC outlooks. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to myself, Dennis Toddy, Doug Cluck, or Brian Fuchs. Our contact information is all there. If you have questions about agriculture issues, Brett Rippey. And again, there's the links for past and today's recorded presentations.
Hey, thank you very much, Maddie. You did a great job. So I'll clap for you. There you go.
Oh, thanks, Doug.
It's not easy. For anybody who ever had done something like this, you're used to, she's an Iowa person, right? So she's really used to looking at Iowa. Then we say, well, okay, look at Iowa, that's fine. But look at Ohio to Wyoming as well. And, round it up. You have a month or so to look back and 3 months to look in the future and, put it all together. It's really easy, right? Not really. You can do it 1,000 times and there's just so much information. So anyway, thanks for that. Let's go to the questions real quick. We had a couple really good here. Let me see. There's an answered one. Okay. So one of the really interesting questions, since it's very apropos for this time of year, is what's the average date for the Missouri Basin and really the Rocky Mountains, and we'll just say everywhere in the U.S. almost. What is the average date? Missouri Basin typically gets snow that sticks, and they're thinking about upper elevations around this time of year, considering ski season. Ski season start predictions. It depends on a bunch of stuff, right? So it kind of depends on what latitude you're at. It depends on what elevation you're talking about. And it depends on the year. If it's a warm year, it may start a little late in terms of accumulation. But generally speaking, when we look at snow, it's October 1st is the beginning of the water year. We call it the water year. But that's when we generally say, okay, look, in the West, we're going to start accumulating snow, probably either man-made, actually, or what comes naturally. So October 1st is when we start tracking it better. Doesn't mean it's really going to accumulate then. And then it accumulates at least through early May, sometimes later in May, depending upon where you are. But right now it's like, 1% of accumulations are done or something like that. And again, depends on where you are. The map that Maddie showed across, you can go back to that if you want, Maddie. She showed for the whole U.S., or Western U.S. in terms of snow percent of normal. Shows a lot of very low percentages. So two things. One, Missouri, when she says Missouri Basin at 70 to 80%, that's for the reservoirs. And we're talking about a couple different types of reservoirs. There are Bureau of Record reservoirs. There are state reservoirs, and then there are Corps of Engineers reservoirs. Most of those in the Missouri Basin are tracking lower than normal at this time. So there's room to hold more water, and a little bit more than there would normally be. And it's generally due to dry conditions for either a few years or the season or something like that. If you look at the map on the right, those are percentages of what is out there right now in terms of what is quote unquote normal, which very much is very small when it comes to how much snow is out there. So take these numbers with a grain of salt because they don't really mean a lot. All we're doing is showing you this. We're going to show it to you all the way through the winter and talk about it as we begin the accumulation season for snow in all those little subbasins. And most of the ones we're concerned about are from northern Colorado all the way up into Montana. Those kind of to the west and south are obviously different basins and don't come into the north central part of the U.S. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that. And then what else do we got here? Winter wheat not included on the North Dakota map. There's a bunch of reasons for that. Probably the main one is that spring wheat predominates in North Dakota. There may be people who plant winter wheat, but the USDA doesn't track them up there because there's not enough acreage, more or less. Same is true in actually Iowa, according to Dennis. Thank you, Dennis, for that comment. A question: how can we get the photos of the Sangamon River for the city of Decatur? Well, Jim Angel, the ex-state climatologist for retired, I should say, emeritus maybe is the best way to say it. State climatologist for Illinois took those pictures, so we can definitely ask him if you can have them, Robert. And then, yeah, sudden stratospheric warming. Is that what we're talking about, Angie? I think that's what's your SSW event, sudden stratospheric. So I don't want to go into, can you go to that slide next? Stratospheric warming and the polar vortex picture or comment. So there has been some indications that might happen, and without getting technical, we have a lot of wind in the upper atmosphere that goes around and protects us from Arctic air. Sometimes that really strong wind, though, slackens and cold air spills south. We're never quite sure where it's going to spill south, but one of the places it tends to is the eastern U.S., eastern 2/3 of the U.S. for that matter. We're seeing signs that may happen. It's very rare, like she said, that it happens in November. And if it does happen in November, we may not feel it until December, or we may not feel it at all if the cold air goes elsewhere, like to Europe, and they can have it. So I just wanted to say that. However, it does look like based on the 2-week outlook, it does look like it's going to be quite a bit cooler and more typical for the season in December, with a little more snow and all that other stuff, which we desperately need in a lot of places. Okay, does the late November, early December cold event, okay, with a slight risk below normal temps, is there any indication of how much below? Yeah, so yeah, good question. Before I comment, or before we go too far into that, I would say let's watch this today and tomorrow to see if, number one, it continues, and number two, continues to show up, and then number two, see if they raise it from slight risk to at least a moderate risk. Then you might be, the higher the risk, arguably the higher the probability, usually the bigger the anomaly is. So the greater the dip below normal will be anticipated. If it's just a slight risk like this, and I can't remember if you would go to the 8 to 14 outlook, Maddie, the actual outlook for that one. that's a pretty good indication that it's going to be pretty chilly. How much? They often don't put a number on that, but I would say, in this case, at least 10 degrees below normal, if that happens, and it could be more. Okay. And then we're being shared that there's 130,000 acres of winter wheat up in North Dakota. So the USDA should get on that. We'll just leave it at that. Start including the winter wheat in numbers up there. All right. Any other questions or comments anybody has? Maddie, did you have anything you want to clarify or have us forget or remember? I see someone put a chart over here. Greg Gust, there you go. What are you saying, Greg? Winter wheat average yields. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm trying to see if there's any other. Well, I think I just put that down.
Yeah, just I'll highlight Melissa sent a message in the chat that the MRCC webinar archive link, I have the wrong link. Whoops.
Oh.
But she sent the correct link there.
So, hey, would you do me a huge favor, Maddie, of copying that and putting it into your presentation so we have the right one?
Happy to. Yes.
And then when we record this or when we finish this, we'll have the right one in there. All right. Hey, thanks, everybody. We'll see you in December. Happy Thanksgiving, and don't eat too much.